Hi there, my name is Vicki Dawson and I'm CEO and founder of the Sleep Charity, if you've not watched our first video. And with me today is Lisa.
Yeah, I'm the Deputy CEO of the Sleep Charity, joining Vicki today.
And we're going to be talking about sort of safeguarding your sleep when you're a parent. And it's a really important topic because quite often it's something that is just missed. It's not sort of asked about. People tend to ask how babies and children are sleeping, but not how we're sleeping as parents. And actually, we know that sleep deprivation's got all sorts of negative impacts. So I think it's a really personal thing as well in terms of how we experience sleep deprivation. I mean, when you're tired, Lisa, how do you find that you function? What's the effect on you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm quite emotional when I'm sleep deprived. So sometimes the smallest things can make me burst into tears. I often find things then become really overwhelming. So decisions become really overwhelming. It almost seems like too big a decision to make. And it could be just something as simple as, what am I going to have for tea tonight? But I'm become really impatient when I'm sleep deprived. So my tolerance to people, to situations is really reduced. So they are sort of the key things that I find when I'm sleep deprived. What about you, Vicky?
Yeah, similar. I think I become more bad-tempered, and it can be like slightest thing that I would normally not react to that just really annoys me. I find it hard to concentrate so much, but also to remember things. So it can be a really simple task, like going to the shops to buy something, and I get there and I'm like, why am I here? What did I come for? And certainly when I've been chronically sleep deprived, it's almost felt like I've been stepping into some sort of dreamlike state. So I remember once arriving at a shopping centre and the doors opened and I just stood and looked and everybody seemed to be sort of moving around and I just didn't feel like I could kind of step into that. I just felt so odd. It was, just really a bit of an unnerving feeling. And I found that I was a lot more clumsy as well when I was sleep deprived. So I'd misjudge things massively. So lots more sort of bumps, accidents, don't mention the car, My parking skills are not great anyway, but, when I was sleep deprived, that spatial awareness, trying to work out where things were was just all over the place.
Do you know what I find as well is that I find that I crave, like really sort of sugary food, sort of almost like junk food. The thought of a salad isn't really tempting when I'm sleep deprived. I'm sort of craving that sort of really salty or sugary food, just to kind of help, I suppose, to boost my energy levels, really.
Yeah. I think I find that I just can't be bothered to do things like cook, so it'll be just phone for a takeaway because it's easier than actually getting a meal ready. So it just reduces like my capacity to, I suppose, meet my full potential, whether that be like as a parent or whether that be as a partner or in the workplace, whatever. Yeah. I just feel like I'm kind of failing in all different areas when I am like really tired. And one of the things that I noticed when I was suffering from real chronic sleep deprivation is it impacted massively as well on my appearance. So I looked tired and I think I didn't probably prioritise myself as much as I would have done before because I just couldn't be bothered.
So too much effort.
Yeah, it is. Couldn't be bothered to go out socially because I just didn't have that energy. And therefore did put on some weight and also didn't look as presentable as I perhaps did prior to being sleep deprived. And that has a massive impact on the way that you feel about yourself as well. Your self-esteem. It's not great when you sort of see a reflection and you wonder who on earth it is in the mirror looking back. I think it affects different people in different ways. And I think we also talk about sleep deprivation, but what does it mean from one person to another? So I'm talking about 6 years of sleep deprivation. And now if I have a bad night's sleep for a couple of nights, I consider that to be sleep deprivation, which it absolutely is, but it doesn't affect me in the same kind of way as that chronic deprivation did.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think, you know, nobody's sleep is perfect, is it? You know, we all go through periods where we might have 1 or 2 bad nights sleep, and we can usually put that down to a reason. But obviously, you know, as a new parent, quite obviously, you do quite have a lot of fragmented sleep for, like you say, a number of weeks, even months, possibly even years as well. So it is different, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's important to sort of normalise that as well. So yeah, you know, everybody has bad night's sleep. Everybody goes through periods of sleep deprivation. And I know you'll get this question a lot, because I do when you do like media interviews. So how's your sleep? You must sleep perfectly then. Well, no, I don't, because I've got children, and, you know, now and then they're up in the night because they're unwell or whatever reason, because that is what is normal. Or I'm unwell, or I'm going through a stressful period in my life, and that affects my sleep. And there's so many factors, I think, with sleep as well that can affect, you know, like the quality of sleep you get in, the quantity of sleep. And it's important to say that, you know, everybody goes through sleep deprivation more or less at some point. And what we've got to look at is, I guess, what are the symptoms of it, and when do we need to sort of take some action around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to look out for those signs, isn't it, of sleep deprivation. And there are lots of different signs, and not all of them sort of signal like chronic sleep deprivation. But I think it's important to think, if actually I'm suffering for maybe, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these, then, you know, it could be a sign that actually I'm not getting enough sleep. So things to look out for, and things that we've just actually talked about, you know, irritability, you know, fatigue generally, feeling depressed, or even just moody. You know, we often say, you know, depression is obviously quite a significant illness, but, you know, just being generally moody and snappy is obviously a sign of it as well. Being forgetful, being clumsy, like Vicki mentioned before, and just having that difficulty concentrating on even the simplest of tasks, and that lack of motivation to do anything. It could be from, you know, getting dressed in a really presentable way, to cooking, to even be bothered to going out for a walk. You know, it all can sometimes seem like too much of an effort. We may notice an increase in appetite. You know, what we said earlier, you quite often have this urge to eat more sugary processed foods when you're sleep deprived. And you might experience sort of more sickness, more coughs, more colds. And you might notice things like your sex drive is reduced as well. So it's important that just to kind of be wary of those signs, and looking at them and just going, you know, we all might have a day where we feel fatigued. I might not be properly sleep deprived, but actually, if you're irritable, you've got fatigue, you're moody, you've got this increased appetite, you are finding it, you know, really hard to concentrate on things, you know, actually start to think, actually, I might be suffering from sleep deprivation. So actually, what can I do? Because the sooner that you start to recognize the symptoms, and the sooner that you can start to put strategies in place to help yourself, the easier it is almost like to rectify the situation. The longer you leave it, the longer that you suffer, the harder it is actually to come back to kind of a normal sort of sleep pattern, to kind of have a really good sleep routine in place. Because we all know what it's like, you know, if you continue with really bad habits for so long, they become really hard to break. Vicki, do you want to talk more about like what we could do if we think we've got sleep deprivation, or if you know somebody who has it, what and some strategies we could put in place?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the most important things to do is talk about it. So as a society, we're not very good at talking about sleep. What tends to happen is you say that you've got a sleep issue, or you say that you're tired, and we get responses that aren't particularly helpful, like, tell me about it, you know, so am I. Or you may get helpful advice, well-meaning advice that's not particularly helpful. Like, have you tried this product? Or have you tried having a milky drink at night? And you think, seriously? I've tried everything. So what we find at the sleep charities, quite often people just need to talk and say, this is really rubbish. I am exhausted. This is how it's affecting me. And they just need someone to listen. And I found that really helpful when I was sleep deprived, just to be heard. That's all I wanted, just to sit there and say how absolutely awful I felt, how rubbish I felt. And it was only after I'd done that I was able to sort of move on and identify ways of improving sleep. I think as well, it is really personal, and it is important to say that if it's a problem for you, it's a problem. So that's the other question that we quite often get. When does it become an issue where you should be seeking support? Well, if you're saying it's an issue for you. And therefore, you know, something needs to happen to support you to get a better night's sleep. I think it's really, really key that we sort of empower people with sleep education, because if I had understood about sleep, a lot of the sleep issues that I experienced wouldn't have happened. But I had no understanding about the fact that we have a circadian rhythm, so like a body clock, and that it doesn't run precisely on a 24-hour cycle. And the reason that we need routine in place is to pin that body clock. So I heard everyone talking about bedtime routine, and I put together a bedtime routine for my child, and it didn't work. Well, no, of course it didn't, because I was trying to do it at the wrong time. I was doing the wrong things in the routine. And if I'd have had some of that sleep knowledge, then that would have helped immensely. And I also didn't recognise, I guess, that adults need a bedtime routine, because you kind of think it's a very childlike thing to do, don't you?
Yeah.
You imagine like a bath and someone reading you a story. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that hour before bedtime being a wind down time, an opportunity to help your body to support the production of melatonin. So melatonin is the sleep hormone that we produce naturally when it gets dark. So it's the hormone that helps us to feel sleepy. So we will talk about things like, you know, having a dimly lit room so that the melatonin can be produced. We'll talk about avoiding screen activities, because screens are a source of light, so can trick your body clock into thinking that it's actually daylight. Simple tips that you can use in that hour before bed. And it's that kind of learning that I found really key. And things like, I would try to catch up on sleep, and actually you can't. So what I would try to do is have a lie-in at the weekend. And because I was so tired, I wasn't waking up till maybe lunchtime, but then you're not tired at an appropriate time in the evening. So your bedtime gets later. And then by the time you're back to Monday, you're actually no better off, because you're just falling asleep later, but you're still having that disrupted sleep. So I'd not realised that, you know, wake up times are as important as the falling asleep time. So I think that sleep education is really important. So learning about sleep, and then you can start to identify for yourself what might be causing your sleep issues. And quite often with parenting, you know, it's often your child's sleep that is having an impact on your sleep. But there's lots of strategies that you can try as well for your children. And what I did find is that I was always throwing these strategies in place without unpicking the why bit. And what is helpful is if you can almost stand back and look at the problems that you're having and try to identify what might be causing them. And there are so many factors. So if it is your child's sleep that could be causing them, then looking at that and actually what is it that may be contributing to the wake-ups. And, you know, we don't work with youngsters under 12 months because they're supposed to wake up during the night. They need feeding. There's the teething going on. There's a whole developmental stages that they're going through at this point. As we move into like older children, number of things that can be, you know, contributing to sleep issues are just enormous. And we look at everything from bedroom environment. So lots of youngsters have got the most beautiful bedrooms, but they're actually really stimulating. You know, we want sort of plain bedrooms, neutral stuff, so that it's not disrupting sleep. We look at lighting, and it can be that parents may buy products that they believe help the children go to sleep at the start of the night. But during the night, we come to several points of partial awakening. And with sleep, consistency is key. So however we go to sleep at the start of the night needs to be maintained throughout the night. So if a child goes to sleep with some twinkly lights on and some music playing, and that turns off, and then they come back up through the sleep cycles to one of these points of partial awakening, and they become aware that things are different, they're more likely to fully waken up. And then what happens is parent goes back in, puts that product on, child goes to sleep because they've learned to go to sleep like that. And then when they come to the next point of partial awakening, they wake up again. And this goes on throughout the night. And generally, parents will write amazing reviews for these products, going, they're helping them to go to sleep every time. Quite often they're causing a lot of the awakenings. And that is what I'd never, you know, realised. I was the parent who bought everything that promised a great night's sleep. I had sprays, you name it, the lot. And then when I recognised that actually it's that consistency, that was sort of a really important learning point. And we do things with children, don't we? Like changing sleep environment. We carry them to bed when they're asleep. I always think, try to look at it from your point of view. You know, if you fell asleep on the sofa tonight and then woke up in your bed, you'd be slightly alarmed about how you'd got there, and you're likely to wake up fully, aren't you? Yeah, but we do it to children and think that, you know, that's okay, and then expect them to sleep through. Or if a child has to have you next to them when they go to sleep at the start of the night, you know, that's a bit like a partner, where you need a partner next to you. If they disappear in the night when you wake up, you would wonder where your bed partner's gone. And that's the same as a child who does that. So it's trying to really drill down on what could be causing it. And it can be things like temperature. So rooms might be too hot, so we want it about 16 to 18 degrees. Or it could be that it's perfect temperature at the start of the night, and then, you know, body temperatures drop, they kick the covers off. It could be they're getting too cold during the night. It can be what they've consumed in terms of diet. So many reasons, but you can apply all that to adult sleep as well.
That's what I was just going to say, Vicky. You think that these things are just for children, but actually they apply right to us as adults. And I think we really neglect our own sleep at times and think that we don't need these bedtime routines or these bedroom sort of conditions and things. But actually we do. Our sleep's just as important as children's sleep, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we do neglect it. You know, I always find it sort of amusing if you put it to, if you think about a cat. Would a cat decide that they're not going to go to sleep because they've got more important things to do? No, because they just go to sleep. But human beings, we put off sleep for all sorts of reasons, because we want to catch up on like something on Netflix. So we will sleep deprive ourselves to keep watching. Or of course, child's eventually gone to sleep and we think we've got to like catch up on whatever. So we'll be exhausted, but we'll put off our sleep. And actually we need to start prioritizing it, because it is really important to the way that we function. So I think having those, like some strategies to think about as well, is important once you've identified what could be causing it. And I think sometimes just talking about it, like I said earlier, it helps you to hear reasons as well. So you might not be aware of what's causing it, but as you start to talk about how sleep deprived you are and what's happening, you can almost hear yourself saying things. You go, oh, I wonder if it could be that thing, and maybe I'll try that tonight. And it's that consistency too. So trying something, but actually sticking at it for a couple of weeks before you stop doing it. Because I used to try something, it seemed to get worse, so I'd stop it and then try something else, and I was forever sort of jumping about trying different things.
Yeah, you're right, because I think it's almost like there are sort of no magic solutions at times. It's not an instantaneous fix, is it? Putting something new in place. You do have to give it a good go. You know, you do have to give it a good 2 to 3 weeks to see those positive benefits, because you can't just change something overnight at all. I was going to ask Vicky as well, like what about naps for parents? Because, you know, if you are sort of sleep deprived, or you know, you are suffering from maybe a lack of sleep, would you advise new parents to nap?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, as long as baby's safe, if you can manage to get some naps in while baby's napping, then absolutely do that, because naps can be really beneficial, really helpful. And sometimes you feel a bit pressured of, oh, baby's asleep, I best do like all these other jobs that have been piling up. But actually, you know, your sleep's so important. So I'm a big fan of naps. Yeah, they can really help.
Yeah, I mean, a good power nap can really, really boost your energy levels, can't it? And I think some people feel really guilty about taking a nap, like it's almost like a bit of a luxury and that you shouldn't really be doing it. But, you know, why not? And I think you're right. It's important to look after your sleep rather than look after the washing up or the, you know, the laundry at a point when, you know, your child is really young. You know, those things do wait, you know, and they can wait.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think you're right. You know, it is viewed as a bit of a luxury having a nap. I think we sometimes view sleep as being a bit lazy, and there's this whole thing like sleep is for the weak, and you're supposed to just be able to carry on. And one of the things that I sort of reflected on when I had another child was sleep is so vitally important in terms of things like safety. So actually, if I was sleep deprived and was driving and had an accident and my children were in that car, you know, that is just a dreadful thought. Not to mention the fact that it could, you know, injure other people out there. And that sort of brought home the message to me that I needed to prioritize it, because I needed to be safe. I needed to be safe for my children so that I weren't putting them at risk. But also so I wasn't putting myself at risk. And that's more of an extreme example, but it is something that we will do, drive around being sleep deprived, not recognizing how dangerous that can be. But it's also like safeguarding your emotions as well, you know. And actually, I'm a better parent when I'm well rested. I'm much more patient. I'm much more able to be there for my kids, like to be present with my kids, than if I'm chronically sleep deprived. So it's not a luxury. It is enabling me to be the best parent that I can be. Not to mention partner as well, because, you know, I'm pretty grumpy if I've not had my sleep. So I think move away from seeing it as a luxury and almost see it like, you know, if you need to go to the toilet, you need to go to the toilet. Your body's telling you that. And there's only so long that you can hold it. And same with sleep, you know, your body's telling you need to sleep. Listen to what your body is telling you that you need to do. And if you're unable to nap, I would say it's looking at how you can get the rest that you need. So what support have you got around you that may enable you to get the sleep that you need? So, you know, whether someone else can look after your child for a short period of time. And again, you're so tempted to like go out and do things, but actually sleep is important, and it is time well invested, I would say.
Definitely. So I think the takeaway from that is that, you know, it's important for parents to not feel guilty about having some me time as well before bedtime, you know, so actually having that time to wind down. And, you know, if it means going having a nice warm bubble bath, or, you know, actually taking 20 minutes to go read a book, you know, they should do it. You know, it's part of safeguarding their sleep, isn't it? And I was going to say, Vicky, as well, you know, how can people feel better during the day then if they are feeling a bit sleep deprived? You know, what could they do to make themselves feel better, you know, apart from obviously napping? What are maybe anything else they could do?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, our circadian rhythms are governed by light and dark, and this is really important information. So, if we can get ourselves into natural daylight for like half an hour in the morning, that is a really good trick to use. Or you can buy light boxes that sort of mimic the natural daylight, and that helps to sort of suppress the melatonin and make us feel more awake, so more alert. And having that regular wake up time can help with that as well. So get up at the same time each day, open the curtains, try to get outside, exercise is really important as well. So not too close to bedtime, but in the daytime, if you can get out there, get some walking done, that is a great way to sort of feel better, feel more alert. Diet, think about what you're eating. So make sure that you're well hydrated, and also make sure that you look after yourself in terms of good nutrition. And, you know, we know that there's like a link between things like caffeine and sleep. So that can stay in your system, that can make it harder to fall asleep at night time. Things like alcohol. So we might think, oh, I'll have a drink in the evening because it helps me to fall asleep. And it may help you to relax. It may help you to fall asleep more quickly, but it disrupts the architecture of your sleep. So you're not as well rested and you still feel exhausted in the morning. So looking after yourself in terms of those things are really important.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, our website has all those practical tips, doesn't it? And suggestions for parents to try. Sometimes something that I get asked, Vicky, is obviously, does sleeping become easier the older you get?
Not necessarily. The thing about sleep is it's a real individual thing. So, you know, everyone experiences sleep differently and has different sleep needs. So one person might need, for example, a completely darkened room. Somebody else might need some light coming in. Somebody might need 2 pillows. Somebody might need 1 pillow. Somebody might need no pillows. We all have different quirky needs around sleep. And that's why you can never sort of just give like 5 top tips to get a better night's sleep, because it's so personal. And in terms of age, you know, sleep changes over time as well. So we go through developmental stages, and that's the same with our sleep. And so as we get older, there's different things that may impact. So, for example, menopause for ladies and the hormones, and that's often a time when there are more sleep difficulties experienced. And as we enter sort of more senior years, that's when we may find that we need a nap during the daytime and less sleep during the night time. So it's very, very sort of dependent on individual people. What I would say is, if you learn about sleep and you've got this basic sleep education, it gives you some of the tools to be able to use, you know, throughout life. And this is why we're so passionate at the Sleep Charity as well, about educating youngsters about sleep, because once you've learned about it, you can apply it throughout your life. It gives you so much sort of information and resources to draw on.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you die from lack of sleep?
Well, yeah, you can, but that sounds really dramatic and scary. And that's not what I wanted to, the message that I wanted to send across. So, yeah, you can. And, you know, sleep deprivation is a form of torture. And it's a form of torture because it's very effective. And when you think about it like that, then it becomes even more shocking that we don't prioritise sleep, because, yeah, you can die from it. But we're talking here about prolonged sleep deprivation. So not just like being tired, and we're talking about not going to sleep for a number of consecutive days. What I think we need to bear in mind is it has massive impact on things like mental health. So, you know, if you are going for long periods without sleep, you can hallucinate, and there are dangers around that as well, psychosis, etc. So, yes, it is possible, but I would say very unlikely. And what we need to be doing is making sure that we look after our sleep, and seeking medical help as well. You know, if it is becoming a real issue for you, but it's important that you don't just suffer alone, that you go and speak to a healthcare professional about this.
Definitely. How long, you know, does an average person take to fall asleep, Vicky? You know, if people are asking, you know, how long does it take to fall asleep? You know, some people fall asleep as soon as the head touches a pillow, but some people can toss and turn for an hour, can't they? You know, is there an ideal?
You know, if it's taking more than half an hour to fall asleep and you're concerned about that, I would be saying that you need to be getting some sort of sleep support in place. Sometimes it might take you more than half an hour on the odd night, and that can be because you've had a particularly difficult day or even an exciting day. Sometimes it's just difficult to turn off from the daytime. So if it's infrequent and it's not causing you concern, don't worry about it. I think sometimes we worry about sleep when we shouldn't be worrying about it, and certainly there's lots of things like gadgets to measure how much sleep you're having, and I'm finding increasingly that people are becoming overly concerned about the sleep because a gadget that they wear has told them that they're not getting a good night's sleep, rather than the fact that they feel like they're not getting a good night's sleep. And a lot of these things are not particularly good at measuring sleep and how long it's taking you to go to sleep. So if you're relying on a watch, for example, that you're wearing and it's telling you that it's taking you too long to get to sleep, but I would say just take it off and have a go without it, because that can increase your anxiety about sleep. And if your anxiety is increased, it's harder to go to sleep.
They actually coined a term, didn't they, for the anxiety that's been caused around sleep trackers and the impact on sleep, and it's called orthoinsomnia, and which is stupid really when you think about it, that these trackers are there supposedly to help you sleep, but actually they have created quite a lot of anxiety around sleep. And you're right that they're not very accurate, and they've been great in sort of helping people to become a little bit more educated around sleep and realizing sleep's important. But I think people should just assess how tired they are or whether they've had a good night's sleep by just how they feel the next day. We do know the next day whether we're sleep deprived or not, really, because I think if you're still fueling yourself with like cups of endless coffee at sort of 11 o'clock midday, then chances are you probably haven't slept very well the night before. But most of us by sort of 10, half 10 in the morning do feel absolutely fine, don't we? And I think that's usually the sign that you've slept pretty well.
Yeah, it's definitely about how you're feeling and how you're functioning. So I think it is important not to get hooked up on things like these devices that are telling you how long it's taking you or how much sleep you've had. It is how you'll feel in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And just kind of the last question of our chat today really is, do all parents suffer with sleep deprivation?
Oh, interesting one. I would say yes to some degree, because it's inevitable in, the early years. So, right at the very beginning when we have our little bundles of joy, they are going to be waking up for feeding. And that is absolutely right and what they should be doing and necessary. So there's always going to be some element of sleep deprivation that comes with parenting. And I think sometimes what we've got to do is really normalise this, because there are lots of books out there, lots of products out there that try to encourage parents to get their infants to sleep through the night. And actually it's completely inappropriate for that developmental stage. So it's really important to have conversations like this to say that is not the norm. That is not what young babies should be doing at all. And sleep deprivation is a part of parenting. What we need to do is to help families to get into sort of good routines, to learn about sleep so that they can put things in place so that as the youngster develops over time, then we can reduce the possibility of sleep issues occurring. So it's not a sleep issue if babies are waking.
Absolutely. And I think that just really ties up, this chat, doesn't it, today, in support of obviously Snuz's Sleep Support Month, what to look out for, what you can do. And, if you do want to know more, you can visit our sleep charity website, which is just www.thesleepcharity.org.uk for more information. Anything else to add, Vicky, before we end today?
No, just thank you for listening.
Yes, and happy sleeping.